Hey everybody, welcome back to GR Research where we've had some busy weeks and I'm finally back in front of the camera again. Finally just had to set aside some time over the weekend while the phones are not going crazy and give you guys an update on some of these speaker upgrades that we've been doing. We've had lots of them in here, just one right after another. So like I said, finally just have a moment to take a breath. No-res just came in. We've been without it for a week and big pallet loads of that came in. We've got 3,200 tube connectors just showed up that we've been waiting on, and so it's feeling a lot of back orders and stuff's flying out the door. Cable orders are coming in out the wazoo, and we're getting tons of really good feedback on the cables, the speaker cables and the power cables, and we've just been covered up busy. And I appreciate all the orders out there, and thank you guys for all your patience. It's been really tough to get raw materials in, but we're starting to get some of that stuff stocked up, and hopefully we won't see as much outages as we did all of last year. And now back to speaker upgrades. Like I said, we've had a lot of them in here, and I'm going to go over some of the more popular ones with you. And of course, one of them is this little Kef. It's the Q150 model, and it uses that basically the same driver we see on a lot of their models. And let's just get right at it, go through this thing, and let's look at the befores, let's look at the afters, let's look at what I came up with and how I can help all of you guys that may have one of these models turn it into something. Let's start with the frequency response measurements on this thing. If we look at the frequency response, we'll see it stays within a plus or minus 2.25 dB range. So you think, oh, pretty smooth. But no, not so fast. There is a pretty good little peak in the 750, almost 800 range, and another little peak about the 12 or 1300 hertz range. And some of it could be due to the sharp edges that are on the box. Just as it starts to become in an omnidirectional pattern, here's a sharp edge for all that diffraction, and that may be causing some of the peak. But if we look at the frequency response again, you see those two peaks there, right in a bad area. That's right in a spot where it's going to put some brightness and forwardness right in your face. If you look at the spectral decay, now this is looking at the frequency response over time. We're looking at how fast does it dissipate any stored energy. So we're hitting it with a signal, and we're looking for it to just play it and drop off and stop. But as you can see, right where those two humps are, there's some stored energy there. You see that long trace hanging out there real far. That's going to be offensive. That's going to be some ringing. That's going to be tough to listen to. That's going to get on your nerves like nails on a chalkboard in a short order. If we look at the off-axis response, we'll see the little driver has pretty good off-axis response. So as you start moving left or right or up or down, it tends to drop off pretty smoothly. And if you look at the impedance curve, you can see that with the port, and it's rear ported, and it also comes with a little foam piece that you can shove in the port if you want to block the port. There was a little resonance right at the port tuning. You can see that in the impedance curve, and it did drop down to I want to say it was around 3.5 to 4 ohms right there at the lowest point. So it is something that you have to keep in mind if you're hooking this up to different receivers and things like that. If you gang a bunch of these up on a receiver, it may not like the low impedance loads. And then, of course, I did an impedance curve of it with the port plugged, and the little resonance in the port tuning went away, and looks okay. But let's see what happened. Let's look at what I did with this thing. I did everything I could to get those humps out of it. I put a pretty simple filter on it and was able to get a nice roll off. If you look at the tweeter roll off, you'll see it rolls off pretty smoothly. If you look at the woofers roll off, you'll see right there where those humps are, I tried to knock those down as much as possible. And this notch filter here that consists of 3 parts are basically shunting that stuff to ground right there. and reducing that stored energy. So if you look at the spectral decay, you'll see that there's still some energy there. It's still there. I've knocked it out a little bit, and I've brought it down quite a bit so that it's not as offensive. There's also a measurement I took where I overlaid the before and after, and as you can see in the overlay, right there in that area where all that brightness was, right where those humps are, I softened that area as much as possible and knocked that area down so it's a little bit less offensive right there in that area. Also, if you look at just the total frequency response by itself, you can see it's still nice and smooth, still within that same range, plus or minus. I've just knocked it down in those hump dip areas. And then if you look at the off-axis response now, it's actually really good. That's a pretty good off-axis response when you start moving off in each direction. And I added a little bit more insulation in the box whenever I was doing the testing and measuring because it was a little underdamped. And as you can see in the new impedance curve, right there where that resonance was in the port, that's knocked right out of there. So I was able to do some things with it that are going to improve the balance and the listenability of the speaker. Now, the other thing that I did was with this kit that I designed for this thing, the quality of the parts has gone up significantly. Before, it had a real low order crossover, looked maybe like a first order filter, and super cheesy parts. You know, little iron core inductor, cheap, everything. Pretty much what you'd expect at these price points. You know, this is a pretty budget level price point, but not anymore. Now we've stepped things up. We've got a second order filter on the woofer that controls it pretty well. There's the notch filter that's bringing down that aggressive area. And I got 3 parts on the tweeter circuit, so not a lot of parts on it, making a pretty nice curve on that range there. So not a whole lot of parts. We're stepping up your wire to some high purity 4/9 pure copper and polyethylene. That's going to help a lot. You get plenty of solder to put it all together with, and you get a set of tube connectors. That's going to be a huge improvement over the super cheesy binding posts that are on the back of this thing. And again, you can insert the tube connectors right into those same holes on the binding post cup. You're just going to have to drill those out a little bit. All of these parts should neatly fit in the bottom of the cabinet. We're not dealing with a huge amount of parts. Just be sure you turn your inductors in opposite directions so that they're not transferring fields from one to the other. The other thing that I'm including in this kit is 1 sheet of no-res because it really needs it. The cabinet is lightly constructed and it needs a little help damping this stuff out for sure. So what'd it come to? Well, all the new parts, all the new wiring, tube connectors, solder, heat shrink. I'll throw in some heat shrink, red and white, and a sheet of no-res. You're looking at $259 for the whole upgrade. That's everything you need for the pair. For the pair. I know you guys are still going to ask me that. Is it for a pair or for one? It is for a pair. So $259 gets you fixed up. It's an easy upgrade. They'll be a schematic with it, shows it how it all goes together. And if you need to give me a call and say, Danny, can you walk me through this? I can walk you through it if you can't figure it out. But it's going to be easy. And that's it for this little Kef model. Stay tuned. We're going to go right into some other upgrades that we just did. If you hadn't hit the subscription button or the subscribe button, please hit it. We appreciate all you guys subscribing. And that's it for the little Kef Q150. Stay tuned for more speaker upgrades. See you guys.